Friends, thank you for being here today. What if I told you that when a courtroom erupts in cheers for an accused assassin, the society isn't breaking down, it has already broken? What if the most dangerous moment in American history isn't the crime itself, but the applause that follows it? We are witnessing something that defies the logic of civilized society. Luigi Mangione stands accused of executing a CEO on a Manhattan sidewalk in cold blood, a father, a husband, a man walking to a conference. And yet, when he appeared in court in December 2025, he wasn't met with outrage. He was met with adoration. Young women in free Luigi scarves, men dressed in Super Mario green costumes, turning a murder trial into a carnival. The crowd outside wasn't demanding justice. They were chanting his name like he was a liberator. Let me give you a number that should make your blood run cold: $1 million. That's how much has been raised by the December 4th Legal Committee, his defense fund, from over 28,000 individual donors. This isn't some billionaire writing a check. This is the American public crowdfunding the defense of an assassin. Think about that. 28,000 people, one donation at a time, saying, "We stand with the killer." But here's the number that truly reveals the abyss we're staring into: 41%. That's the percentage of Generation Z voters, ages 18 to 29, who, when polled immediately after the shooting, said the murder was acceptable or somewhat acceptable, not a fringe, not the extreme. Nearly half of the next generation views executive assassination as a valid form of grievance resolution. This is a structural fault line. This is not a trial. This is a referendum on the social contract itself. The state is prosecuting a murderer. The public is judging the victim. Friends, we need to understand what we're really looking at here. This isn't about one man or one crime. This is about something I call the Vigilante Premium, the social capital that is now being awarded to those who attack the system. When a murderer becomes a saint, when his face appears on merchandise with a halo around it, when Etsy and eBay are selling out of products depicting him as a religious icon, we are witnessing the complete inversion of moral order. The system is viewed as so demonic that the demon slayer becomes sacred. Now, before we go further, we need to go back, because nothing happens in a vacuum. There is always a genesis. There is always an origin point that explains why the present moment has become inevitable. The phrase that matters here isn't free Luigi, it's three other words: deny, defend, depose. These words were found etched on the ammunition casings at the crime scene. And if you work in healthcare, if you've ever dealt with an insurance claim, if you've ever watched a loved one fight with their insurer over a denied procedure, you know exactly what those words mean. Deny, defend, depose. This is the industry standard legal strategy used by insurance companies to avoid paying claims. It's the three-step playbook for turning a contract into a con. First, deny the claim. Second, defend that denial in court if the patient appeals. Third, depose. Drag it out, exhaust them, wait for them to give up or die. It's not a secret. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's stated policy, written in legal memos and taught in training sessions. Luigi Mangione didn't just kill a man. He killed a concept. He took the abstraction, the faceless bureaucracy that tells you your cancer treatment isn't covered, that your child's medication is experimental, that your surgery is elective, and he gave it a face. And then he erased that face. The Free Luigi movement isn't about him. It's about the millions of people who have been on the receiving end of that strategy. People who watched their parents die because a claim was denied, people who went bankrupt paying for treatments that should have been covered, people who were told in the most polite corporate language imaginable that their life wasn't worth the expense. Mangione is simply the avatar of their rage. He is the violent expression of a fury that has been building for decades. Think of it like a mortgage. If you borrow money to buy a house, you understand the deal. You owe the bank, and if you don't pay, you lose the house. Simple, brutal, but clear. Now imagine you pay your mortgage every month for 20 years, and then one day the bank says, actually, we've decided we're not going to give you the house. We're keeping your money and we're keeping the deed. Why? Because we have a team of lawyers and you don't, because we can. That's what the healthcare system feels like to millions of Americans. You pay your premiums, you follow the rules, and when you need the system to fulfill its promise, it deploys an army of adjusters and lawyers to find a reason, any reason, to say no, deny, defend, depose. The system isn't designed to serve you, it's designed to outlast you. And this leads us to the system's most crucial secret, which we will explore in just a moment. But first, you need to understand the mechanism that turns a murder into a movement. I call it the Joker effect. Do you remember the movie Joker? The protagonist, a broken, isolated man, shoots a wealthy banker on the subway, and the city doesn't recoil in horror. The city embraces him. He becomes a symbol, a rallying cry. The violence isn't condemned, it's celebrated because the victim represented a system that the people had already judged and found guilty. We are watching that movie play out in real life. The Luigi character, yes, from Super Mario, the goofy sidekick in the green hat, has been recoded. He's no longer a cartoon, he's a revolutionary symbol. The green hat is now the uniform of the class war. Costumes that were once jokes are now statements. The imagery of a video game has been weaponized into the iconography of rage. And here's what terrifies the authorities more than anything else. Not that Mangione might escape, they're terrified that he might die in custody. He is under what they call constant watch, suicide watch, specifically to prevent an Epstein-style situation. The state knows that if this man dies in a cell under mysterious circumstances, the conspiracy theories will calcify into something far worse than belief. They will become gospel, and the courthouse, maybe the entire system, will burn. Why go through this elaborate charade of protection? The answer is discipline. The authorities understand that Mangione alive is a legal problem. Mangione dead is a revolution. Friends, let me be very clear about what's happening here. This is not a story about one unstable individual. This is a story about the scaffold of legitimacy that holds our society together, and that scaffold is collapsing in real time. Let me take you to a specific moment. December 2025. The suppression hearing, the courtroom is packed. The prosecution plays the 911 call from the McDonald's manager who recognized Mangione and called the police. Listen to what happens on that recording. The manager is whispering, his voice is trembling. He says, he looks like the CEO shooter. The customers are really upset. But here's what's critical. The manager doesn't say the customers are scared. He says they're upset. Upset at what? Upset at whom? The hesitation in his voice isn't just about approaching a dangerous suspect. It's about something far more destabilizing. The customers in that McDonald's weren't reacting with fear. They were reacting with something the manager couldn't predict. Some were sympathetic, some were protective. The blue flu of silence was already spreading. The social contract that says, if you see something, say something, was fracturing in real time. That phone call is a canary in the coal mine. It reveals that the rot isn't isolated to online forums or radical corners of the internet. It's metastasizing into everyday life, into McDonald's, into the places where ordinary Americans gather. The virus of sympathy for the assassin has already jumped from the digital realm into the physical world. Now let me show you the second canary. UnitedHealthcare, the company whose CEO was killed, quietly spent $1.7 million on executive security in 2024. Most of that spending happened after the shooting. The C-suite knows something that the public hasn't fully grasped yet. They are now targets. Every CEO who has denied claims, every executive who has maximized shareholder value at the expense of patient care, every board member who has incentivized the deny, defend, depose strategy, they're all looking over their shoulders now. The invisible shield of civilization that said we don't shoot people we disagree with has evaporated, and they know it. The corporate world calls this operational risk. It's the sanitized term for the fear of assassination. It's the recognition that your suit is no longer armor, it's a target. That your corner office isn't a symbol of success, it's a sniper's perch in reverse. You're the one in the crosshairs. Here's the third canary, and this one is perhaps the most disturbing. The supporters who showed up to the courthouse, the ones in the green hats and the free Luigi scarves, they were wearing shirts, and those shirts had a very specific message. 11 minutes of missing footage. They're referring to 11 minutes of body cam footage from the arrest that hasn't been released to the public. The official explanation is standard procedure, protecting the integrity of the investigation. But for the movement, those 11 minutes have already been filled in. The conspiracy theories aren't speculation anymore. They've calcified into fact. The missing footage proves a cover-up. It proves the system is lying. It proves that Luigi is being railroaded. Do you see what's happening? The absence of evidence has become evidence of absence. The gap has been filled with narrative, and once that narrative sets, once it becomes the accepted truth within a community, no amount of official explanation will dislodge it. The courthouse could release every second of footage, and the believers would simply claim it was edited, sanitized, manufactured. The trust is already gone. Now, here's where it gets truly dangerous. A judge recently threw out the terrorism charges against Mangione. The ruling was narrow, the act was ideological, the judge said, but it didn't meet the specific legal definition of terrorism under New York law. It was a technical distinction, a legal parsing of statutes. But inside that courtroom, when the ruling was announced, the crowd cheered. They didn't hear not terrorism under the statute. They heard not a crime. They heard validation. They heard the system itself admitting that this was a political act, not a murder, that this was justified resistance, not cold-blooded execution. The authorities are trapped. Let me show you the encirclement. If they convict Luigi Mangione of first-degree murder and sentence him to life in prison, he becomes a martyr. His face will be on murals in Brooklyn. His manifestos, and there are manifestos, friends, lengthy writings about the healthcare system and corporate greed, will be studied like sacred texts. He becomes Nelson Mandela in the minds of a generation that sees the system as apartheid. If they go further, if they execute him, if New York reinstates the death penalty just for this case, he becomes a messiah. The St. Luigi iconography is already prepared. The halo is already drawn. The religious imagery is already being shared. You think I'm exaggerating? Go to Etsy right now. Search for his name. You will find prayer candles. You will find icons. You will find artwork that depicts him as a martyr in the tradition of Joan of Arc or Che Guevara. The execution would simply be the final scene in the hagiography. The state would be playing the role of Rome crucifying the prophet. And if he's acquitted, if some jury in Manhattan decides that the evidence isn't sufficient, or that the circumstances warrant leniency, or that they simply can't bring themselves to convict him, then the legal system collapses. Because if you can execute a CEO on a public street in broad daylight on camera with premeditation and walk free, then every executive in America knows that the courts will not protect them. The implicit threat of legal consequence, the thing that keeps society from descending into vendetta and blood feud, that threat evaporates. The gavel will come down, a verdict will be read. But the real verdict has already been returned by the street, by the crowd outside the courthouse, by the 41% of young people who said the killing was acceptable, and that verdict is not guilty. Friends, we are watching the convergence of three distinct forces, and together they form a perfect storm that is already sweeping away the foundations of the social order we took for granted. The first force is the wealth gap, but not in the way you might think. This isn't a story of a desperate, impoverished man striking out at the rich. Luigi Mangione was valedictorian of an elite prep school. He went to an Ivy League university. He came from privilege. He is what the system calls a success story, and that makes him infinitely more dangerous than a desperate outsider because he proves that even the elites, even those who were supposed to benefit from the system, are turning against it. When the winners start shooting the winners, the game is over. The Ivy League CEO was killed by an Ivy League shooter. Same class, same education, same access to power. The only difference is that one of them woke up and decided the system was irredeemable. That's the nightmare scenario for the ruling class. Not a peasant revolt, but a civil war within the citadel itself. A class traitor is more terrifying than a class enemy because he knows where all the bodies are buried. He knows the codes. He knows the weaknesses. The second force is the healthcare crisis, and this one is mathematical. Every denied claim creates a potential supporter for this movement. Every family that goes bankrupt paying for cancer treatment. Every parent who watches their child suffer because an insurer decides that a life-saving medication is not medically necessary. Every elderly person who dies waiting for approval for a procedure that could have saved them. Each one of those denials is a seed, and the soil is fertile with rage. Do you know how many claims are denied every year in America? Millions. Do you know how many people have medical debt? Tens of millions. Do you know how many families have been financially destroyed by a healthcare system that prioritizes profit over patients? The number is so large it becomes incomprehensible. But here's what you need to understand. Every single one of those people is now a potential recruit. Every single one of them saw Luigi Mangione on the news and thought, I understand why he did it. The third force is the memeification of violence. This is the most insidious because it removes the moral weight from the act. Within hours of the shooting, TikTok was flooded with fan edits of Mangione, music videos, montages, clips of his perp walk set to pop songs. The murder was transformed into content, into entertainment, into a viral moment. When violence becomes a meme, when assassination becomes an aesthetic, when killing becomes content, the psychological barrier that prevents people from committing acts of extreme violence begins to dissolve. The act is no longer real. It's a video game. It's a movie. It's a story you participate in by sharing and liking and commenting. The gamification of the class war has already begun. And once that Rubicon is crossed, once murder is just another form of engagement, the body count will rise exponentially. These three forces, elite defection, systemic grievance, and the aestheticization of violence, are converging right now in real time in that Manhattan courtroom and in every screen across America. And the result is what I call the Vigilante Premium. The social capital, the status, the adoration that is now being awarded to those who attack the system with violence. But let's talk about what this really means for you, not abstractly, not theoretically, personally. If you are a high net worth individual, if you sit on a corporate board, if you run a company, if you make decisions that affect thousands of employees or millions of customers, your safety has always relied on something invisible but absolutely essential, the social contract. The unspoken agreement that says we don't kill people we disagree with, that says we resolve our disputes through courts and elections and protests and editorials. That says violence is the line we don't cross, no matter how angry we get. That contract has been canceled, and you need to understand what that means operationally. Your executive title is no longer a badge of achievement, it's a marker. Your wealth is no longer a sign of success, it's a provocation. The tailored suit, the luxury car, the penthouse view, these things that once signaled status now signal something else entirely. They signal target. The public has stopped asking, how did you earn that? And started asking, who did you exploit to get that? This is what I mean by operational risk. It's not a metaphor. It's not hyperbole. It's the cold actuarial calculation that your life is now valued differently by a growing segment of the population. The math has changed. The risk assessment has been updated. And the insurance industry, oh, the irony. The insurance industry knows this better than anyone. That $1.7 million UnitedHealthcare spent on security. That's just the beginning. Every major corporation in America is right now recalculating the cost of executive protection. They're hiring more bodyguards. They're installing panic rooms. They're teaching their CEOs how to vary their routines, how to avoid predictable patterns, how to move like targets in a war zone. Because that's what this is now. A war zone, not in the sense of bombs and tanks, but in the sense that the rules of engagement have fundamentally changed. The assumption of safety has been revoked. Now, let me address the psychology, because this is where most people will fail. This is where normalcy bias will kill you. Human beings are hardwired to believe that tomorrow will look like yesterday. We smooth over the aberrations. We tell ourselves that extreme events are outliers, anomalies, flukes. We say this is terrible, but it's not the new normal. Things will go back to how they were. They won't. The reason normalcy bias is so dangerous is that it feels like wisdom. It feels like you're being rational, level-headed, refusing to panic. But normalcy bias isn't wisdom. It's denial wearing a suit. It's the voice in your head that says it's probably fine right up until the moment it definitively isn't fine. And by then it's too late. Right now, there are executives who are looking at the Free Luigi movement and thinking this is just internet nonsense. This is just kids being edgy. This will blow over. There are board members who are reading the security assessments and thinking, we don't need to overreact. We're not UnitedHealthcare. We're not in healthcare. This doesn't apply to us. Friends, they are wrong, catastrophically wrong, because this isn't about healthcare anymore. It was never really about healthcare. Healthcare was just the fault line where the pressure broke through first. But the pressure is everywhere. It's in every industry where executives make millions while workers struggle. It's in every sector where profits are maximized and lives are commodified. It's in every boardroom where the quarterly earnings call matters more than the human cost. The Free Luigi movement doesn't care what industry you're in. They care about what you represent. And what you represent is the system, the machine, the structure that extracts wealth from the many and concentrates it in the hands of the few. Once you understand that, you understand that no executive is safe, no industry is exempt, no amount of corporate social responsibility messaging or charitable giving will shield you from the rage that is building. Let me introduce you to another psychological trap, the money illusion. This is the cognitive error where you confuse paper wealth with real wealth. You see your net worth increase on a statement and you feel richer, but are you? If the currency is devaluing, if social stability is collapsing, if the infrastructure that protects property rights is eroding, then your millions might make you poorer in the ways that actually matter. You become a millionaire on paper, but poorer at the grocery store. Richer on the balance sheet, but less safe on the street. This is the choice you face right now, and it's a binary choice. There's no middle ground. There's no compromise position. You either understand what's happening and adapt, or you don't, and you suffer the consequences. The choice is this. Do you continue to flash status in a world that is cheering for the equalizer? Do you continue to live as if the social contract still exists? Or do you recognize that we have entered a new era, an era where visibility is vulnerability? The age of conspicuous consumption is over. We are entering the age of stealth wealth. This isn't about hiding your money, it's about hiding yourself. It's about becoming invisible. Because if the public doesn't know you exist, they can't crowdfund your assassin's legal defense. If you don't flaunt your wealth, you don't become a symbol. If you blend in, you survive. This is the hard truth that the billionaire class hasn't accepted yet, but they will. The mega yacht, the private jet with your name on it, the Instagram posts from Davos or Aspen. These things are no longer status symbols, they're suicide notes. Every public display of extreme wealth is now a provocation. Every interview where you talk about your success is a target being painted on your back. Every photo op is a recruitment poster for the movement that wants you gone. Now, I want to be very clear about something. I am not advocating for this. I am not celebrating this. I am not saying this is just or right or good. What I am saying is that it's happening, it's real, it's spreading, and pretending otherwise because it makes you uncomfortable or because it violates your sense of how the world should work, that pretending will get you killed. History doesn't care about your preferences. Reality doesn't accommodate your worldview. The forces that are in motion right now will continue in motion until they encounter an equal and opposite force. And right now, I don't see that opposing force. I see acceleration. I see more anger, not less. I see more Luigis waiting in the wings, not fewer. The authorities can't stop this by arresting one man. They can't stop this with more security or more surveillance or more police. You can't jail an idea. You can't handcuff a movement. The Free Luigi phenomenon is a symptom, not a disease. The disease is the systemic exploitation and inequality that has made millions of Americans conclude that the system itself is illegitimate. And once that conclusion is reached, once legitimacy is lost, violence becomes not just thinkable, but logical. It becomes the rational response to an irrational system. So, what do you do if you're an executive, if you're wealthy, if you're part of the class that is now being hunted? What's your move? First, you accept reality. You stop pretending this is temporary or marginal or going to resolve itself. You accept that the world has changed and that you need to change with it. Second, you become invisible. You downgrade your lifestyle visibly. You stop flying private if it's public knowledge. You stop posting about your vacations. You stop giving interviews about your success. You make yourself boring, forgettable, not worth the effort. Third, you diversify your risk geographically. You don't want all your assets, all your presence, all your life concentrated in one place where one angry person with one gun can end you. You spread out, you create optionality, you have a plan B and a plan C and a plan D. Fourth, and this is the hardest one, you ask yourself honestly, am I part of the problem? Have my decisions, my policies, my business practices contributed to the rage that is now manifesting as violence? And if the answer is yes, if you've denied claims, if you've laid off workers to boost stock prices, if you've lobbied against regulations that would have protected people, then you need to understand that you're not a victim of random violence. You're a participant in a system that has consequences, and those consequences are coming due. I know that's uncomfortable. I know it sounds like I'm blaming the victim, but friends, we're past the point of comfort. We're past the point of politeness. The crowd outside the courthouse isn't being polite. The people donating to Luigi Mangione's defense fund aren't being fair. They've made their judgment. And unless something changes dramatically and soon, that judgment will be executed again and again and again. This is not a prediction. This is an observation of a process that has already begun. The first domino has fallen. Luigi Mangione was not the beginning, and he will not be the end. He is the template. He is the proof of concept. He showed that you can kill a CEO and become a folk hero. He showed that the public will support you, fund you, lionize you. He showed that the risk reward calculation for political violence has fundamentally changed. And now that the template exists, now that the path has been cleared, others will follow. They're watching, they're learning, they're planning, and they're thinking, if he can do it, so can I. If he can be a saint, so can I. The window for preventing this was years ago. The time to address the healthcare crisis, the wealth gap, the systematic exploitation, that time was a decade ago, 2 decades ago. We're past prevention now. We're in the damage control phase. We're in the survival phase. History favors the prepared. History favors those who see the wave coming and move to higher ground. History does not favor those who stand on the beach, insisting that tsunamis are exaggerated, that the water will recede, that everything will be fine. The water is not receding, friends. It's rising, and the window for preparation is closing. The scaffold is collapsing. The edifice is crumbling. The foundation has cracked. And when the structure finally implodes, when the next CEO is killed, and when the Free Luigi movement spawns Free Marcus and Free Sarah and a dozen other names, the people who survive will be the ones who saw it coming and acted accordingly, not the ones who hoped it would go away, not the ones who thought they were special or exempt or protected by their wealth or status. The survivors will be the ones who understood that the rules had changed and changed with them. The trial will continue. The verdict will eventually come. The legal system will grind through its process. But the real verdict has already been delivered. The public has spoken. The movement has formed. The template has been established. And the only question that matters now is, are you prepared for what comes next? Friends, thank you for being here today. I know this is heavy. I know this is dark. But the truth doesn't care about our feelings. The truth doesn't soften itself to make us comfortable. And the truth is that we are living through the breakdown of the social contract, the rise of the Vigilante Premium, and the beginning of something that history will remember as a turning point. Whether we turn toward more violence or find a way back from the brink, that remains to be seen. But pretending we're not at the brink, that ship has sailed. The question is whether you're on it when it sinks. Stay vigilant, stay invisible, stay alive.